Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for joining another episode of the Optimal Bio podcast. Today I'm joined again by Brit, who leads our wellness program at Optimal Bio. Today we're going to talk about all things toxins and how to detox your life step by step so it's not overwhelming. Thanks for joining us again, Brit.
So happy to be here again.
I'm excited because I think, toxins is everyone talks about toxins and your food and your beauty supplies and the list goes on, but sometimes it can be overwhelming of, well, how do you detox your life, right? There could be so many places. And two, I really want us to discuss the importance of it because I think sometimes people think, oh, it's just a scam, but it's not. So really kind of going into, bit by bit of how, we can help you day by day and the why. I think the why is so important.
Agreed. I think the why is overlooked a lot of times, right? Or people think that it's, maybe just a ploy to get more money out of us, which, we could talk about too, just the expense differences. But I think the why is so important. So really happy to dive into this with you.
Yes, awesome. So let's just start with the beginning of why are we exposed to so many toxins these days?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many chemicals in everything that we use, unfortunately, and not even just in the products that we use, but in our air, in our water. It's everywhere. They're everywhere. And I think if I'm correct in knowing this, there's about an estimated 2,000 new chemicals introduced a year for everyday products, including food, personal care products, prescription drugs, cleaners like household cleaners, laundry detergent, even pesticides, right? So, I mean, if that alone is added to the chemicals that are already in use, it's an abundance, right? They're basically everywhere.
Yeah, and I think since the 1980s, maybe like 100,000, I could be wrong on the number of chemicals have been into our food sources, our cleaning supplies, beauty supplies, and they've not been tested on humans. Or if they have, there are negative side effects, but they're still allowed to be in, the products that we use every day.
Exactly. And we'll go into this a little bit later too, but there are some products that are like banned in certain, or some chemicals that are banned in certain products, but not in others. And so, if they're tested in one thing and then not in the other, they're allowed to be used. So it's this whole thing. But I think it's really important for everybody to understand that they are everywhere, but there are certain things that we can do to help minimize our exposure, right? Even though we're never going to be completely unexposed to chemicals, there are definitely things that we can do to help.
Exactly. It's all about mitigating your risk, right? And, I think too, just knowing is so helpful. So you can read the back of a bottle and read the labels, or knowing there's no definition of natural. There's a lot of definitions of organic. So just being able to know that. So if you see something that says natural fragrance, that means it's not healthy. So I think little by little it can help.
100%. And just like little things to look out for and, what to know. And just even mentioning off the organic thing that you just said, I think it's like 85% to be considered organic makeup. You only have to have 85% of your ingredients be actually organic. So what's the rest, right? So just knowing these things are really important to look out for, and to choose wisely, right? To spend your money wisely because we're the consumers. So we have a choice in what we purchase. And I think just knowing what to look out for, the why behind why you're choosing these things, it all makes such a difference in our health.
Exactly. And most of these chemicals that are allowed in our food sources are not allowed in Europe. So what is banned in other countries are in our food every single day. Like even if you say get M&Ms, if you get M&Ms here in the US compared to Europe, in Europe it's like sugar, because it's candy. We know that. Whereas in the US, it has dyes and synthetics, which then our bodies, they're chemicals, right? Our bodies can process sugar, obviously not as much as we eat right now, but it doesn't know what to do with those chemicals, those dyes that we'll get into, but also knowing that too is very different. And then if you look at the health of different countries and what's allowed and what's not, it also paints a picture of what these toxins are doing to us.
Exactly. I mean, just look at all the chronic diseases going on in the United States of America, right? We're like the highest rates of a lot of them. And I always think about, well, why is that, right? Well, let's go back to what we're putting in our body, what we're using on our faces, on our skin, what we're doing in our everyday lives that contribute to that, right? And it's not our fault. A lot of times we don't know better, right? And so that's why we're putting this information out there to hopefully bring awareness to people who are struggling to make better choices or to know, right, what the choices are. So I just think this is so important.
And also, too, if you look at the health of children, with the increased rate of these chemicals, the food sources being added, all like kids aren't supposed to be unhealthy, right? Kids are obese now. Kids are getting colon cancer. Talk about the rates of ADHD, autism. Of course, there's many factors, but if you look at when the chemicals, when the food pyramid has all changed, the toxins, and then the rates of chronic diseases, cancers, mental health, physical health across the board, some pieces can start making a lot more sense.
It makes a lot more sense. And not to mention like early onset of our periods and menopause and like all these different things that are happening, right? So 100%, right? We just follow the numbers in this case, like when these chemicals starting to be introduced, the onset of all these different products and toxic burden that we have, right? And I think it makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah, I heard one person, describe it as a bucket because people are like, well, that's not going to affect me. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's just a candle. But if you think of your body as a bucket and every little toxin that goes into it, and then we all have a threshold, right? And then that's when we have, say, day-to-day symptoms. Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I have a migraine. To God forbid, a bigger, you have cancer, you have autoimmune issues. And it's just because those toxins just keep going up and up in your body.
Exactly, 100%. I love that analogy and just like that image. I often talk about that a lot, the toxic threshold that we have. So, really important. Definitely want to get into that a little bit later too.
And two, I think as a whole, we're also used to feeling bad or just feeling not the best, and then it's like, well, my friend feels that way too. And it's like, no, our bodies are incredible and we're supposed to feel good. But I think we're just also used to feeling okay. And it's like, yeah, it's like, no, let's change that. So really, I think, kind of switching over to we can detox. We can, there are simple things we can do day to day to bigger things, but really starting with, what is the process of detoxification?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, when we think about detoxification in general, the toxins enter through our lungs, our skin, our gut, and then they go to the liver, which is the primary detoxifying organ, which handles all of it, right? And then the toxins will typically exit out through the lungs, the skin, the colon, and the kidneys, and they're excreted, right? But a lot of times we're exposed to so many chemicals that our liver is overworked. It's not able to process the chemicals and the toxins as it should be able to, right? So we really want to make sure that we optimize our liver, number one, but also minimize the toxins that we're being exposed to on an everyday basis to help the detoxifying process work optimally.
Yeah, there's a study that just came out a few weeks ago, and it was a group of women. And for just 28 days, they switched from toxic to non-toxic beauty products, and their receptor for breast cancer turned off. And that's just in 28 days. Like how especially insane, right? And especially like the rates of breast cancer are through the roof and you want to ask why. So it's like just seeing that it's like okay, like by removing that toxin in just 28 days it can lower your chance of getting breast cancer.
And like you think about how small amount 28 days is. Like that's amazing. What a simple thing to do. And I know it feels overwhelming a lot of times to be like, you have to change this, you have to change this, you have to change this, but you really don't. And we could take, I hope to take our viewers through like the process and just kind of step by step and knowing that in 28 days you could change something that drastic is such a why and a motivating factor for me. So hopefully it is for everybody listening too.
So, what are some of the major toxins that we see every day from our food, cleaning supplies, beauty products?
There are so many, and I'll go over a few common ones because a lot of them I don't even know how to pronounce, but I definitely want to take through a few, especially the ones that are commonly seen and that we know a lot more about than others. So, for example, heavy metals, right? Mercury, lead, aluminum, arsenic, definitely a top contributor behind the toxins. Phthalates, plasticizers, and phenols, which are BPAs. I know a lot of people hear a lot about BPAs and, BPA free this, BPA free that, all that. We have polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH. There's also organic chloride pesticides and organophosphate pesticides, and then a lot of the letters that I'll get to. So PCBs, PBDEs, and PFCs are definitely some of the common ones. And a few examples of where you can find these things. So phthalates are typically found in cleaning supplies, plastic bottles, toys, children's toys, nail polish is a big one, makeup, toiletries, definitely. And a lot of times you can find heavy metals in things like house dust, even cigarette smoke, dental fillings, fish, and other foods, and also water is a big one as well.
Huge one. Water is so contaminated. If you want to Google something, Google water pipes, and then you'll not want to drink out of your faucet ever again, let alone brush your teeth with it.
Totally. I think you're the one that told me about that website, right, from the environmental working group that you can put in your zip code and you see like the common contaminants in your water and like how safe. Yeah, so cool. So everyone go home and do that.
It is so cool slash so sad because they know. And I feel like, our Cary office, yeah, like Raleigh, Cary has some of the dirtiest water because they put so many chemicals in it. Um, yeah, so yeah, environmental working group, put in your zip code and it's great. So getting a filter is so, so important for your water. They have some great, filters for your shower because you're thinking, you're like, your skin's absorbing it.
Skin's absorbing it, right? That's one of the ways that we absorb the toxins, right? Is through our skin. And so definitely important, whether it's showering or what you're washing your clothes in or, brushing your teeth, right? You're drinking, you're getting some of this drinking water. So I think that it is important to look into filters, whether it is on your shower head or your sink or just what you're drinking. And definitely you can take it in steps too. So it's not super overwhelming, but I think first and foremost, like what you're drinking, definitely get a water filter.
Yeah, and also definitely, look up the water filter you're buying because there are several out there that don't work. So don't spend your money on some of those, like the original one that everyone used to have growing up, like a Brita.
Yes, the Brita. You're so right. I know a lot of them don't filter out many of the common toxins, especially the heavy metals, right? So you want to look into one that does. But I think first step, looking in that website, seeing what your water is like specifically, and I do think they also recommend actions to take too, if I'm not mistaken, on that website. So it's really good. Yeah, it's a definitely a good resource to check out.
Yeah, definitely. And two, like drinking bottled water, there are so many options with drinking bottled water, and better for you options too. So a lot of bottled water is reused tap water, and then sink is sitting in the plastics and the chemicals in the plastic. So because I definitely drink a lot of bottled water because I don't have a filter system. I want one day, but so looking at like Essentia or Fiji, those are definitely better for you options because they have the least amount of chemicals in those plastics.
And I think that's what it's all about, right? We want to make those better options or those better choices every day. So if you don't have access to filtered water, okay, then let's buy the better plastic bottle, right? But hopefully we can start to make and minimize all of the toxins, right? And get away from the plastics. But I think that's what it's about, right? Is just choosing better options and then eventually getting to the place where you feel content in what you're doing to minimize your exposure.
And when you're talking about detox and the pathways and the importance of detoxing your body wants to be able to detox and you feel so much better. And then you don't want to go back. Like you see, like you're like, wait, I can, wake up without being so tired. Oh, I don't get headaches every day. Like it all touches, but right. But if the toxins are stuck in your bodies doesn't know how, won't be able to work optimally.
Optimally, right. And like you said, like our bodies fully want to detox and are capable of doing it, right? We have these organs for that purpose. But because we are exposed to so many toxins and so many chemicals, we're not doing it optimally, right? So let's give our body a fair shot at what it's meant to do, and just feel better. And I know that everyone will as soon as they start to implement some of these recommendations.
And I think too, acknowledging like how the world is in 2024 isn't built for like our bodies to work the best. Like, yes, of course, our poor ancestors who like didn't have indoor bathrooms, like are like, no, like this is so much better. But like say like all the lights, the air and like the 5G, the Wi-Fi, the fragrances. So like knowing that, so then you can kind of be like, okay, how can I like kind of remove some of those because yes, sadly we have Wi-Fi all the time, but can you turn it off at night? Can you put your phone on airplane mode? I always have lights off, like lights off are everywhere. So just knowing like, okay, this world is not designed optimally for our bodies right now. So what can we pull back? Go outside. I think we forget to go outside.
Oh my gosh. No, that's such a great point. That's such a great point, right? Like small little things. And we can definitely talk about some later too, but like taking your shoes off at the door, not bringing them in, getting house plants. Like these are small things that we can do to really help our bodies thrive optimally and handle everything that 2024 has to prevent us from running optimally.
No, we'll definitely go into it. But Google, another thing to Google what is on your shoes when you walk in. Like, take them off at your door is a free, easy step to not bring all the toxins and bacteria, chemicals, whatever else into your house.
Oh, I know. Oh my God. Side note, my son's daycare, it's a requirement to have shoes on with them at all times. And they like nap in their shoes because God forbid if there was an emergency. And I'm always like so skeeved out about as soon as he gets home, I like literally strip him. I'm like, I have to change everything on you because it is such they're so contaminated with bacteria and like, just, yeah, skeeves me out.
Yeah, right. Take off your shoes. And something that we see every day at Optimal Bio is how these toxins are affecting our hormones. Our hormones are decreasing every year, both male and female, because a lot of these toxins make our body stop producing our own testosterone. Why we see, the top reasons, say fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, is because our bodies don't have enough of those hormones.
Absolutely. I mean, they're endocrine disruptors, right? So either they're interfering with or they're mimicking our own hormones, and they can lead to so much, they can wreak so much havoc on our systems and our bodies. So I definitely think that's like, I mean, for us and what we do too at Optimal Bio, I think that's the major reason why we want to really work on minimizing our exposure just to help our hormones. Definitely.
Or like the infertility rates right now are so sad and it's skyrocketing, and I would have probably so much has to go back. I mean, of course, infertility has so many things, and but so many times it's toxins, and people say like share their own stories. Like we removed XYZ toxins, and a year later we were able, to get pregnant. But I think people don't realize because they're not told when they go to the doctor that these toxins play a huge role in infertility.
No, I can't even tell you how many times I've worked with a woman or a couple, and they've gone to see countless doctors, and no one has even talked about let's switch to organic foods, let's minimize plastics, let's get rid of fragrances, right? Let's like do these things, let's move our bodies, let's sweat more, let's, increase our bowel movements, like all these little things that can help. And of course, I'm not saying it's going to be the end all be all for everybody, but you're so right. It can definitely make an impact for the better. And so I think it's just such an important piece of the puzzle that needs to be addressed. Definitely.
Exactly. And talking about, infertility, let's, kind of go into kids for a little bit. All the dyes that they have in their foods.
In the foods. I know. I was even reading the toothpaste ingredients the other day because I started brushing Lincoln's teeth. I can't even. Like I was so just like so saddened and so disgusted by there was dyes and, red number 2 or 1 and blue and all these different things and even known carcinogens were in there too. And I'm like, these are for children.
Healthy toothpaste.
Yeah, I was looking at Tom's. Yeah, I was looking at Tom's toothpaste. Yep, fluoride free. Yep, and we'll get into some of the toothpaste ingredients later, but like I was just shocked and I was like, what is this doing on the shelves? But yes, I mean it can lead to so many different things in these kids, right? And mainly hypersensitivity, right? So we see a lot of ADHD, an increase in kids, and I think we can tie it back to these chemicals in foods. And a lot of times it's the dyes and the food coloring that are commonly in the processed foods, right? And a lot of times our kids are being exposed to these processed foods all the time. So it's really important to pay attention to look at the ingredients because they're not going to. Our kids aren't going to look at these ingredients, right? And I think a lot of times we're fooled into thinking, okay, it could be a healthy brand, and in fact, it has some not so great ingredients. I've been following Lead Safe Mama on Instagram. Do you know this account? She does like independent studies and tests on certain and they're healthier foods, and she tests like heavy metals and stuff. I know this is not with dyes, but it kind of links it back to kids. And I was shocked. Like the things that she tests are healthier brands, like Serenity Puffs, for example, which I would feed my kid at the beginning. And there you go. It's high in lead, right? And so many other different brands. And I was so saddened by it. But I think it's just, we really have to pay more attention to the ingredients in kids' foods too, even if it's a reputable brand.
Yeah. Or like things that you think should be healthy, right? Like formula. Baby formula in the US, the two main ingredients are canola oil and sugar. So you're giving that to an infant, like so inflammatory. And then, we see, like we were talking about earlier, like the obesity rates in kids, the autoimmune rates in kids, just their behaviors, the allergies, like that's not normal. Cause I always joke, I'm like, I wasn't a kid that long ago and none of this existed, because the food has changed so quickly. But really knowing, it's like if a kid is having a tantrum, but you just gave them Doritos, like their poor brain is on fire. Like they can't help themselves, right? Yeah.
Totally. And that's not to say, kids can't have like junk food, processed food. Like, of course, I eat processed food too. The idea isn't to completely remove, but let's get better at reading the ingredients. Let's really make better choices when it comes to what we're feeding our kids, what we're feeding ourselves, and recognize that it does play a role in behavior issues, allergies, autoimmune conditions, like all of it, right? And let's try to really minimize the exposure to all of us. I think it's so important. So yes, there are definitely good, safe brands out there too, and just better alternatives when it comes to, processed food, even beauty products, all of it, right? So we just really have to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and spreading the word, but then also as parents, as humans, like doing your research, really making sure that you're making the safest option for your family.
I think that's the key. Is kind of like when we talked about in the beginning, knowing the why. So at least knowing that these chemicals, these dyes can cause behavior issues, can cause, so it's not just like an unknown, but it's knowing it. And especially there are so many good brands out there. Like Yum Earth has like a healthier candy, Unreal, Siete. So it's like not saying never eat a cookie, but just like you said, just like being able to mitigate it because you want to be able to set your child up for success in so many ways. And food is so, so important.
It's so important. And I think a lot of times people, stop themselves because they think it might be more expensive, right? And I think maybe in the short term, if you're comparing, let's say, a bag of Doritos to a bag of Siete chips, right? Maybe it's $1.50 more. But let's think about long-term impacts too, right? If you're consistently eating those Doritos time and time and time again versus consistently eating the Siete chips over like a long period of time, you're probably going to spend more on your health, right? It's going to lead to a disruption in your overall well-being. So I think if you invest that $1.50 more or whatever it is on better sunscreen, on better laundry detergent, on better food, right? You're making an overall impact and probably an investment in your long-term health. So I like to think of it that way because I do know that a lot of times what I hear from patients and from clients is, it's just too expensive, but it's really not when you think about long term too. And a lot of brands too offer like very similarly priced objects and products. So definitely want to talk about that too, just in terms of prices later on. But don't let that stop you also, because I think about it longevity wise as well.
I couldn't agree more. That's what, like, whenever people bring up, say, pricing, whether it be, a certain type of doctor, like preventative or food, better cleaning supplies, everyone goes first to price. And I think maybe a couple years ago, it might have been a big price difference, but not anymore. Now it's very relative. So, like, to remove that, but even more importantly, you're going to pay for your health, whether it to be keep you healthy or to when you're sick. The US pays the most in healthcare, and we have the sickest population. So you're going to, some way you're going to pay for it. So just knowing that, one, is very similar pricing, and two, look at it. Where do you want to spend that time in the doctor's office, paying for medications, what have you? And also feeling sick every day, right? That impacts everything else, the relationship with you, your family, your work, the community. And so really understanding the importance of it.
100%. I was just going to say that. Like, me personally, much rather invest a little bit more, whatever that may be now, to feel so much better and then to not be sick later on, right? To really feel optimal every day. I think it's so much more important. So yes, I agree with you. You're going to spend the money at some point in the spectrum.
I feel like the majority of Americans who would say, well, CAT is more expensive than Doritos, probably go to Starbucks every day and spend $15. So make your coffee at home, it will be healthier, and then you could put your money elsewhere. I think it just goes back to the notion of like discipline. You're going to pick your hard. So are you going to pick your hard to budget differently, or are you going to pick your hard to be sick? Um, so just kind of, because one, like, I started going to a doctor a few years ago for like my whole health journey, and got super sick a few years ago. And um, talking about it with someone recently, they made the comment like, oh, it must be nice to be able to afford that type of doctor. And I was like, well, actually, I had no money when I went to that doctor because it was my first year at optimal bio and I wasn't getting paid, but I was so sick and I knew I had to do something different. So it's very funny when people just make those quick assumptions, quick comments. And it's like, no, I knew there was another option, but I knew I had to feel better because I couldn't get out of bed, right? No, exactly, and so it's just a very interesting, sometimes I feel like people are projecting on you when
100%. I agree. And I think it's a priority for you, right? Your health. And so you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that you live an optimal, healthy life. And I think I wish that everyone felt that way, because then you do make it work. You find where you can maybe save a couple dollars, right, on your Starbucks and put it towards a functional medicine doctor, or, a couple dollars off of, I don't know, your really expensive hair care brand that is destroying your hair in the long run, and you put it towards, I don't know, an infrared sauna. So there's little things that you can do if it's a priority for you to save up, or a really nice water filter, right? The same as if we save for vacation vacation or a new car, right? Which is really important. But I think that health should be at that level also, of something that people prioritize.
And I think, kind of to go over what are the risk factors for impaired detoxification, and what could be the side effects of not being able to fully detox.
Totally. So I love this and I love talking about this. I think it's really important because a lot of times we think that we can just detox, like, if we optimally, if we change the food that we eat, or, whatever. And that's a great place to start. But sometimes there are some risk factors that we have to be aware of too, to really work on, so we are able to detox properly. So number one, I think, is it goes back to what you're talking about before about the toxic threshold, right? If we have an increased or ongoing exposure to a certain chemical every single day, or toxin, or multiple times a day, probably not going to detox optimally, no matter, if you start taking chlorella tablets, right? So we really have to make sure that we work on these risk factors first and foremost. So yes, ongoing exposure, really important. Like, say we had, I don't know, a filling that has mercury in it, right? So those are like ongoing things that we need to address first and foremost. Or say you smoke cigarettes. So these are definitely toxins every single day that we're being exposed to, that we really have to address. Nutrient deficiencies also. So vitamin B, antioxidant, minerals are really important for overall detox health. If we have a very highly processed, refined diet, or inadequate protein amount, right? Protein is super essential for detoxing. So really helpful to change up our diet a little bit there.
And then with, like, not being able to detox when you're eating processed food, then you are going to have nutrient deficiencies. So it's kind of like a catch 22 that it works together. And I was listening to a podcast that Max Lugavere was on. He's great if you guys want to follow someone. But he asked him, what is the definition of processed food and ultra processed food? And processed food can be an apple that's cut, like we processed it. But ultra processed food, which is 80% of what Americans eat every day, is food that you cannot make in your own kitchen because of the chemically derived. And I was like, that is an incredible, I've never thought of it that way. But just putting it so simple that, like, you can't remake that food in your kitchen, it's just like, should make you start thinking.
That was such a good distinction, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah, because it's so important to realize that most food is processed, right? And we're not talking about, a potato that you cut into little squares and made into a sweet potato, right? Sweet potato fries. Like, that's good processed. But we're talking about the ultra refined, ultra processed Oreos, Doritos, sunflower oil, you know what I mean? So things like that, but great distinction to make. And I love how he simply put that as a way people can visualize too. So yes, definitely can impair our detoxification pathways for sure. And so can inflammation. And I think this one, we talk about a lot, just generally. Inflammation can impair a lot of different things, but again, if we're not eating well, if we're not taking care of our bodies, we're probably going to have inflammation. And so yes, we definitely need to work on that before we can detox properly. And one that I really like to discuss too is just gut health in general, right? If we're not going to the bathroom as well as we can, we're going to hold on to those toxins, right? And it's definitely going to lead to an impaired detox. Sorry about Gouda. Talk about detoxing. He's like, brings whatever into my bed every single day.
Dogs get a pass, dogs are the best because they make you they make you happy, they help with your stress.
Exactly. And stress is something too, right? That we have to focus on, because stress holds. I love that there's a book that's called The Body Keeps Score, and it just talks about how, like, stress in general and trauma, you can really, like, build up toxins, right? And chronic inflammation and all the stuff from stress. So yes, dogs get the free pass, and so do animals.
I know, I feel like we could talk all day about stress and emotional trauma because I don't think people fully believe in it. But like stress is like the biggest killer. Like it literally slowly kills your body. And if you really want to heal, you have to acknowledge that and your emotional trauma, whatever it may be, so that you can start processing it. Our mind is so powerful and it controls the rest of our body.
It's so powerful, and it can go both ways, right? It can really help, it can heal, and you can also really hold on to things. And so 100%, I think we could talk about that. We can maybe make another podcast about just stress in general and mental health. But yes, I think going back to the gut too, a large portion of the liver's toxins comes from the gut, right? But also is excreted from our colon and through our stool. And so if we're not moving our bowels properly, it can impede things for sure. One of my favorite things to recommend, I love colonics.
Same.
Yeah. I love them very much. I think, occasional colonics, a great way of just getting things out. Of course, taking care of your gut health, like probiotic rich foods, prebiotics, all that stuff, definitely necessary from a day in and day out. But if you want to treat yourself to a little colonic once in a while too, I think that's a really great tool.
Yeah, they say to do it like each season. So like, 4 times a year. It really does help so much. Because even when you're doing all the right things, we are surrounded by so many different toxins, and just being able to get that out, and you just feel better, like lighter, just like mentally too, like knowing that you did something to help release some of those toxins.
It's so wild. Every time I get a colonic, my skin glows. Like the next day, I feel so glowy, and it's just the removal of those toxins, right? From your colon. So I think they're wonderful. I mean, obviously, there's definitely different ways to get your bowels moving too. If someone's like, not so sure.
I know. I think people are scared of them for no reason, though. Like, if you go to the right person, they make it very normal for, yes, a weird situation, but like, this is what they do every day, and it's very simple, very normal. You're in and out in like 40 minutes.
I'm like very good friends with my colonic lady now because because we chatted for 40 minutes, every time we go, and she's wonderful. But yes, like you said, if you go to the right person who knows what they're doing, it's a walk in the park.
How many times should you go to the bathroom, a day or a week? I don't think people realize how often we should be going to the bathroom.
You should ideally be going to the bathroom after every meal. Ideally, right? And that could be 3, 4 times a day. But a lot of times people go once, if that, right? And so if you're someone who goes once a day, maybe our aim is twice a day then, right? If you're someone that goes every other day, then we really want to aim for once a day, right? So obviously, if you're someone who goes every other day to the bathroom, my goal for you wouldn't be like 3 times a day. That's a very big jump. That's a very, very big.
It'd be a miracle. Yeah.
Would be a miracle, yes. And speaking, yes, totally. So I think it's just taking where you are. We want to make sure that you're going to the bathroom efficiently. So, absolutely bare minimal. I like to see once a day. But ideal world, three times a day would be great. And then it's the consistency too, right? Which is a whole nother thing, but we can talk about later.
And that's why like a probiotic is so important. Being hydrated, working out, because those can really help in that. And then also knowing like if you have symptoms of gut health, whether it be constipation, stomach pain, migraines, the list goes on, knowing that something's not working right, and definitely need to go get that checked out.
You got to check it out, right? And then we need to make some changes in order to help your bowels move more efficiently. So, yeah, you are able to detox better and feel better. And guarantee, speaking from someone who also dealt with chronic, gut issues, once you get those healed or in a better place, it all changes. It truly all changes. And I think it's one of those things that you have to experience to
Yeah. And I think too, just remembering health is a journey. And you just need to be little by little that you're gonna feel better. You might have some peaks, you might have some valleys, some supplements that may work for a little bit, you may need to switch. So just like knowing it's a journey and being excited about that in the way that just like letting it be, and you're able to, you know, be in control and take charge of things. And because your gut needs different things at different times, your body needs different things at different times. But like you said, like once you feel better, like people will say like, how do you miss X, like something in gluten or whatever it may be, and I'm like, do I miss feeling like death every day? Yeah, absolutely not. Like I think people just need to get to feeling better and whatever that looks like for them, and then they'll know.
I agree. I love what you said too. I always talk about how health, the journey of health, is not linear, right? Like you can have so many twists and turns along the way, or just like a day where you don't follow like what you've been doing, right? Or your patterns. And, and that's okay. Like we're only human, right? So we can make quote unquote mistakes or, have setbacks or whatever it is, or supplements might not work for you, or a diet might not work for you, or whatever. But I think it's just important to keep going and to keep trying different things to reach that level of health and well-being. So,
And you'll learn what works as you're going,
exactly, exactly.
And like the 80/20 rule, I think is so important because sometimes like I don't take my supplements every day and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't take them. I'm like, okay, they're still in my body from yesterday. Like it will be fine.
It's going to be fine. Yes. Or if you have like an extra large piece of cake, like I did a couple days ago, right? Like it's okay. You're going to be all right. Let's just do better the next meal, right? Let's try to decrease our sugar. Let's really prioritize protein and hydration and all the things that we know, right? So I think it's just learning what works for you and learning like certain tools for when you have those setbacks, you continue to improve, right? So yes, it's not linear. It's definitely a journey, but it's worth it.
And I think too, eating healthy is sometimes viewed as negative, like it's restrictive or it's toxic or whatever it may be. Very, very weird because eating healthy and making your body feel better is a good thing. But I think it's just that conversation is like you're depriving yourself, and it's like, why would you want to keep giving yourself food that's not making you feel good?
I agree. I think it's better now than it was, a couple years ago. But I do think that, like, when I started my journey on health, I mean, I was in high school, and I just started like really researching and reading into labels, and I was embarrassed because most people my age were not paying attention to, what they were eating or what they were putting in their body, or didn't even know. And then obviously I made it into a career as things went progressed, but I felt embarrassed about it at first and like kind of shamed for being so like in tune. And I think it was that culture of like, oh, why are you paying attention to this? Like just do what the masses do, right? And yeah, I think it's really sad. I think it's getting better because more people are aware of the actual negatives behind a lot of the ingredients and the toxins that we're exposed to. But I think that we still have a long way to go before, that outweighs.
Or just listen to yourself and don't listen to some social post or some person. Because, like, do you feel good? Probably not. So we'll be good. I think let's just jump into some easy ways, day to day that we can minimize toxin exposure.
Yes, love this. So I think we've talked about this a ton, but fragrances is like the worst. They're the worst. They're the worst. Candles, perfume, scented garbage bags, air fresheners, like all of it. They're terrible for our hormones. And I just do think that it's such an easy thing to eliminate. It doesn't cost more to choose unscented products, right? So that is something where cost should not be the roadblock behind making that switch. So yes, that's a very easy thing to do.
And I feel like too, once you remove like fragrances, candles, scented anything, the next time you're around it, like you will get a headache, you will feel a little nauseous, and then you'll realize like what are the toxins that are doing.
100%. That just happened to me the other day when I was in the Uber, and it was terrible. I was like out of commission for a couple hours because it was blasting on me. But yes, I think that's so true. You recognize the longer you're away from these chemicals and then you're exposed to them again, you really feel the difference. So yes, it's a really easy thing to do. Like we talked about before, removing your shoes before entering. If you have a pet, try to wipe down their paws before entering too. I actually do that. I wipe his paws every single time we come home from a walk, because he does carry in, bacteria as well. And then like we were talking about before, house plants, so easy, right? Yes, it costs money to buy some plants, but not that much. Plants are not that expensive. And if you take care of them, they last. And opening windows, getting fresh air, like all these things that doesn't cost anything, right? Just trying to breathe in the fresh air to get rid of some of the bacteria and the toxins in your home. Super easy. What else? I mean, we can talk about so many. Working out, like we mentioned before, sweating, going in the sauna, like removing your toxins through your skin is very important too. So definitely love to go in the sauna, work out, sit in the sun for a little bit, get that vitamin D, really helpful. Avoiding plastics as much as possible too. I know we talked about this. So like food containers, water bottles, plastic wrapped foods, really important. I was also reading through that same woman, the Lead Safe Mama, she was talking about how peanut butter in plastic jars, like the way they process it is so dangerous. And I was like, my mind was blown because I didn't even think about it. Like, yes, I think about plastics all the time and, choosing jars and glass and everything like that. But peanut butter, for some reason, just completely escaped my mind. So it comes in a lot of different forms. So we definitely want to choose glass whenever possible and just trying to avoid where we can. And also including foods that help, right? I mean, yes, a lot of foods can be harmful if they're super processed and ultra refined, but foods can help us detox too. So some of my favorites, we're talking cruciferous vegetables. I know we talk about this a bunch, but they're really high in DIM, but they're also high in fiber, and so they get things moving right through our stool, like we talked about before. Coffee is also really great for our liver. It helps us detox. It's really high in antioxidants, so it helps the liver. We want to choose organic, but yes, coffee is great. Spinach and dandelion greens are actually excellent sources of chlorophyll, which is amazing for detoxing. I actually take chlorella tablets every single day. It's one of my like non-negotiables that I do because it's so rich in chlorophyll and it helps with detoxing. Lemons too. No worries. Lemons, they're really great. They're rich in citric acid. They protect liver function and oxidative damage. So like that's why the whole lemon water trend became so popular. And it's true. It really does make a difference. And one of my favorite things to include on all things is cilantro. Cilantro binds to heavy metals and actually helps excrete them from the body. So if you can pick something, from that list, I feel like cilantro is such an easy one because you can throw it on salads or soups or whatever, right? Or eggs. It's so tasty, but it's so helpful at removing some of those toxins. So, small little changes that you can add, small little things that you can add to your diet to help.
And I think too, what people don't realize is how toxic receipt paper is. Like if you're gonna do one thing, have no fragrances in your life and do not touch a receipt. Like do not touch a receipt.
It drives me, it makes me so, really upset for cashiers that don't wear, yes, the gloves.
Especially during the whole COVID time that they were putting hand sanitizer on and then grabbing the receipts because it was like getting even sucked into their bloodstream even faster.
100%. It makes me so sad. I'm like, please, all I want to do is tell the cashiers, like, wear gloves when you touch this stuff. But every time they like hand it to me, I feel so guilty that I'm like, but at the same time, you have to take, yeah.
Oh, I tell them no.
No, I tell them no too. Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't.
Or if they like, or sometimes like I just feel bad, which is dumb. So like I awkwardly like hold it by like one of my fingers and like I like throw it away immediately.
I know, but they're covered in BPAs. So yes, it is very toxic. The receipt paper, terrible. Getting more sleep, is also really important. I think it's an underrated thing too to do for just optimal detox. But we want to sleep. We want to make sure that our inflammation is down. We want to heal, restore, all that stuff. And I also think just changing over in general, right, to healthier, less toxic products is somewhere that I know people want to do or are interested, but don't necessarily know where to start because it does feel overwhelming. I remember when I started on my like, okay, revamp for all my products, it did feel a little bit overwhelming because I feel like back then there wasn't really great resources, but there are good resources now. And hopefully we can shed some light on that. But yeah, just less toxic products in general.
Yeah. And you mentioned sleep, but like you can do all these things. And if you don't have sleep, your body's not going to be able to work well, especially with healing. Like we have sick cells in our bodies every day, we have cancer cells in our bodies every day. But by sleeping, it's your one time your body's fully allowed to heal. And so you have to sleep.
100%. I think that sleep is like, it's so overlooked all the time, especially in our, I know that you're not a native New Yorker, but you very well might as be. You're always in New York, but in a lot of cities, it's just go, 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 go all the time. And I think that it's seen as like a weakness to sleep and restore, where it should be a superpower. It allows us to reap the benefits of everything we're doing, right? So you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars on your health every week, but if you're not sleeping, you're not going to get those benefits ever.
Yeah, or like I used to be such a night owl, and I was completely fine when I woke up if I had 5 hours of sleep. But then as soon as I knew what sleep does to your brain and for your entire body, I was like, oh my gosh, like if you like after 11 p.m. if you don't go to sleep, like your heart health, your brain, your metabolism, oh my god, I will be in bed before 11 o'clock. Yeah.
It tanks totally. And I think I talked about this at our on-site, but for all those of you that have had babies, when you go without sleep for an extended period of time, there is nothing you realize right then how important sleep is. So if you have not realized it yet and you have babies in the future, I promise you it's coming. You'll realize because you go without it for an extended period of time and you just feel like absolute death.
Oh no, just thinking about that makes me feel like death. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know how you guys do it.
I don't know either, but we survived, right?
I didn't. I have not been there. You did. You survived. Yeah.
Barely, barely. And then I also wanted to mention just certain supplements too. There's a bunch that help with liver. Our liver do a better job detoxing, but there's definitely some that are great and really important. So NAC, N-acetylcysteine, excuse me, antioxidant powerhouse. So it actually helps promote glutathione levels, which is like the king antioxidant, if you will, in our body. So really helps the liver run optimally. Milk thistle also really known for its positive influence on the liver function. Curcumin, it is so helpful in promoting oxidative stress or preventing, excuse me, oxidative stress and just protecting the liver. So really great supplements to try or to consider trying if you are interested. And like I said earlier, I do take chlorella daily. So it is really high in chlorophyll. And again, it can help bind to heavy metals and draw them out of our system. So that is something that I also do daily is take chlorella.
I think too, with cooking, you talked about like non-toxic products. Just by eating at home, you reduce your toxin burden by so much, and then you save so much money because in the majority of restaurants they're using seed oils, which are so inflammatory and so toxic to your body. So just by cooking at home without seed oils is plays a huge role in your health, and using non-toxic pans because you have to think all those toxins are seeping into your food while you are cooking and then eating it.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the times what the problem is with like plastics and containers, right? If they're getting heated, which they are when they're being processed, right? That's when the chemicals leach into our food. The same thing goes for our pans and our cookware. If we're heating, which a lot of times we do when we cook, right? Those things are producing free radicals and they're leaching into our food and causing havoc. So it's a great point. Just by switching to less takeout or less restaurant food, you're really decreasing your toxic burden through a decrease in the seed oils. Definitely.
Exactly. And we're going to write a blog on our website of all of this too, to summarize like the brands we recommend, and just kind of like a take home guide for you, and ingredients. So you can just look at, a product, you can do a quick view of them. So you can just do it little by little. But, when you're thinking about, beauty products, meaning toothpaste, deodorant. What are some ingredients to avoid that are in most of those products?
Yes, there are a lot, but I'll give a short little list, and then again we'll put this in the blog. Yeah, definitely. So parabens, we've talked about this before, but parabens very closely linked to hormone disruption, and potential health risks. So they're seen in a lot of cosmetics and personal care products. Phthalates, like the plasticizers, again, they have been associated with reproductive and developmental issues. Formaldehyde is also commonly used in makeup, and some other products too, but it's actually used to prevent bacterial growth in makeup. But prolonged exposure has been linked to carcinogen effects and skin irritations. I mean, so many different things. Yeah, which is crazy, right? You think about like formaldehyde, you really want to put that on your face? Probably not. Yeah. Synthetic fragrances, like we mentioned before, they're in makeup, they're in laundry detergent, deodorants, all of that, can cause skin irritations, allergies, hormonal disruptions, all of that. And a lot of times companies don't even have to disclose fragrances, and the ingredients, right? Because they're deemed like trade secrets. So you don't even know, a lot of the time. So if you see like now I'm blanking on like what they typically put, but it's like the proprietary blend.
Yes, proprietary blend, or and then for like food, it says natural flavors, or for like beauty products, it says like natural fragrances. There's nothing natural about it.
Exactly. There's no natural in there. And that's just their way of like hiding the actual information. That's one of my biggest red flags in a company, whether it's food or beauty products or whatever. If they don't disclose every ingredient in their product, do not buy it, right? That's a red flag. We want them to be very transparent. So yeah, going back to certain things. So talc is also really commonly used in a lot of makeup and cosmetic products. It's really highly associated with respiratory issues. And mineral oil. So it's actually derived from petroleum, and it's used as a moisturizing agent. However, it can clog pores and can cause acne and other skin issues. So definitely not wanted in makeup or anything that we put on our skin, definitely. Um, and BHA and BHT, they're preservatives that can cause liver, thyroid, and kidney problems. They can also act as a tumor promoter. So definitely not wanted. I also wanted to mention, like I said before, so organic makeup brands, they need to have only 70% organic ingredients in their products. I think I said 85%, so I was wrong. So it's 70% in their products to be considered organic. However, if you get makeup with the USDA organic seal, they have to have at least 95% organic ingredients. So really try to look for that seal when you buy makeup specifically, because if you think about, okay, yeah, we're trying to use organic products, but if only 70% of it is, then you're still getting 30% that's non-organic. So it's just another trick that they use in order to, get consumers to buy their stuff. So definitely want to look for that seal whenever possible.
Your like skin is our biggest organ, and so what we're putting in our skin and our mouth is going into our body, and it's an everyday thing, if not multiple times a day.
Multiple times. Yes. This is like toothpaste was honestly my first thing that I changed when I went back. Like, even before deodorant, this was like my first, I was like, the stuff that's in toothpaste should not be in toothpaste. But you're right. Like what we're putting on our body, it's so important. So yeah, definitely we'll touch upon that. And then in the blog, I'll write up everything, in terms of the ingredients to look for. But I want to just mention, because I think when we think of toothpaste, the number one ingredient that people are worried about is fluoride, right? Which definitely rightfully so. We want to be worried about fluoride, but there are other ingredients too that we want to be able to look out for sure.
We're like the only country that uses fluoride.
Totally. And I can talk about some other like healthier alternatives, like hydroxyapatite is a great alternative to fluoride. That whitens the teeth, that it remineralizes the teeth, it prevents cavities, right? It's so much healthier, but it you don't run the risk of thyroid problems.
Yeah, I haven't used fluoride probably in 15 years and I have very white teeth. Yeah,
Very white teeth, right? So lucky, yes. So I think that it is. It's just yeah, it's not great. Triclosan. So I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the FDA has actually bound triclosan in hand soaps, but it's still allowed in toothpaste.
that makes sense.
Yeah, right? Like we're putting it in our mouth. So I just think that it is really something to be aware of that we don't want toothpaste with that. So for sure. And again, artificial sweeteners, dyes, definitely commonly found in toothpaste. Artificial sweeteners, terrible for our gut health. Want to make sure that we're avoiding them. So things like saccharin, aspartame, sorbitol. Instead, if you want something to be sweetened and toothpaste, stevia, monk fruit, better alternatives for sure. But maybe we can go without sweeteners too. But things like I mentioned, hydroxyapatite, definitely a better option. Natural abrasives like coconut oil, so much better for your teeth. And herbal extracts, so like green tea, aloe, neem, peppermint oil, much better, much cleaner. We just want to make sure that we don't go overboard on those essential oils because it can disrupt the microbiome in our mouth. So I think it's just important overall just to look at the ingredients and make the right decision. So yes, I'll post this all on the blog, but I think it's important to have kind of like a little list that people can refer to.
100% because your oral microbiome affects your gut microbiome, which then affects the rest of affects the rest of your body.
Exactly, exactly.
If you think about deodorant, it's going straight into your lymph system. So why are we putting aluminum, parabens, fragrances right into your lymph system? And so it's just kind of thinking about it, or shampoos and conditioners, soap on your body.
Detergent, laundry detergent, right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Or our sheets, and we're sleeping in the bed night after night after night. So, just thinking about the products that you use on a daily basis, I think that's a great place to start making these changes, right? You don't need to overhaul everything at once, but think about, okay, what are the products that I use every single day? Deodorant, toothpaste, I have clothes on my body every day. So laundry detergent, things like that. And how do we make a better choice by reading the ingredients, by doing some research, by referencing our blog post, and seeing trying different brands and seeing if they feel good for you.
So a lot of new cases of lung cancer are in people that have never smoked a day in their life, and it's from their cleaning supplies in their house.
The cleaning supplies is, I think it's probably the hardest one for people to grasp for some reason, because I feel like, and I've talked to so many people about this, but I feel like they need it to be like chemically in order to like get rid of, right? But you don't actually.
I was reading something yesterday that we are programmed that bleach cleaning supplies means clean, but clean should have no smell.
No, it should have no smell, nothing. Yes. I am obsessed. I'll do a little plug. I'm obviously not affiliated with this company, but Force in Nature is like, it was the biggest change that I made. And I clean everything with Force in Nature. Like absolutely everything I come in contact with. It's literally vinegar and salt and water, and their system turns it into this disinfectant. And it is absolutely incredible. So, I mean, it doesn't have a smell. It doesn't smell. But I agree with you. I think it's so funny. Like, I remember talking to my maintenance in my past apartment, and I was like, there's mold in my bathroom. And they were like, all right, we'll use Clorox and bleach it. And I'm like, pretty sure that feeds it, right? Like, let alone what it's doing to me, but I'm pretty sure it's actually feeding the mold to grow more. So, I mean, yes, I think as a society we're programmed to just believe that like everything that we clean with has to like strip away, just like hand sanitizer, right? It's killing all those bacteria, the good bacteria. So, no, we don't have to have like hospital level disinfectant in our home.
And where's like in hospitals, where do you get like some crazy infections or in the hospital, but that's a whole nother
In
story.
the hospitals, we don't need these crazy disinfectants. We can use like good quality ingredients to disinfect, baking soda, vinegar, all that stuff, right? So
Hydrogen peroxide.
exactly. So let's just make these changes at home. And yes, we don't need harsh chemicals to clean with. Definitely.
Yeah. And just remember, clean equals no smell.
Yes, clean equals no smell, no smells for anything. But yeah, the deodorant very important. Even more than just aluminum, and I'll write it out. But a lot of it is the same, right? Parabens, phthalates, fragrances. Like you just continually see these products pop up, or these chemicals pop up. I also think it's important to note, because I find this is interesting, that most people I talk to a lot of people that will have like reactions to natural deodorants, and they're like, but I get itchy and all that stuff. It's actually the baking soda in there a lot of the times that causes the reaction. So if this is you, look for a deodorant that's free of, the chemicals, but also baking soda free, and you should be golden.
And it could just be your body detoxing as well.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Well, this was great. We can keep talking forever on this. Anything, else you want to discuss before we end?
I think the last thing that I will leave you, our listeners with, is just mentioning coffee real quick. I know I mentioned it before that we really want to opt for organic whenever possible, but coffee is, while it's great for our liver, it is one of the most highly sprayed crops that we have. So definitely want to opt for organic. So whether that is in your Keurig or going out to get coffee, trying to choose that whenever possible. Really important. And yeah, we have some resources I'll post in our blog as well, so people can look that up as well.
Awesome. Well, this was great. Thank you for joining us, and excited that hopefully this can, break it down a little bit and be step by step instead of overwhelming.
Agreed. Yes. Thank you.
This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tyler Brannon, podcast host and partner Jim Baker, medical director Greg Brannon, production assistance by Core Media, Beth Grabencourt, administrator, Kevin Duthu, executive producer. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.